John Paul Stevens, Justice and Jedi Master. Editors note the opinions in this article are the author's, as published by our content partner, and do not necessarily represent the views of MSN or Microsoft. Justice John Paul Stevens was remarkable in so many ways that even his death at the age of 99 comes as a surprise. He had published Stevens, known for his penchant for wearing bow ties, had an extraordinary life and was an extraordinary justice, the third longest serving in the court's history, at his retirement in 1990. Born and raised in he was a stalwart Cubs fan who attended the World Series game at Wrigley Field. He proudly hung, and he was an effective and influential justice, beloved by his colleagues on the court, and of course his loyal law clerks. In his early years, unfailingly polite at oral argument, he would invariably begin his questions by asking permission of the advocate to ask a question. But no matter how, Stevens was proudly patriotic, and loved his country. He served in the Navy. For Stevens, the flag was more. President Gerald Ford appointed Stevens to the court in 1975 and was later sharply criticized by many Republicans when it became clear that Stevens would not be a reliably conservative vote. Not long before President Ford deserves our nation's gratitude for such an inspired choice for the High Court. On Tuesday,
Raindrops, drop top, top smoking, no cooking the hot pot. Fucking on your bitch, yeah, that. Looking up, open the park, pot.